Namaskar and welcome to this show, Sathology Debunking Mythology. Today we are talking about our favorite uh, personality, historical personality, Krishna. And, and we'll talk about his date, his appearance, and birth. And we have a very famous historian, our great friend, and, uh, and a big devotee of Krishna. And he is joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. And so let us hear from Sri Nilesh Oak. Welcome, Nilesh.
Namaskar, Aditya ji.
Namaskar.
Thank you for inviting me. And the Krishna Janmashtami, or the celebration of Krishna's birth, is right on the corner. So you selected a good topic. Let's talk today about Krishna's lifetime, beginning with his birth and until he completed his pastime for that round. That round of a Dwapar Yuga.
Perfect. It's an ideal topic just before prepping up for Janmashtami now, 14th. Excitement should increase every day. So the Krishna is a historical personality which has been established by everybody, scholars. And the best thing about the Vedic knowledge or history is that even the Western critical Christian missionaries have acknowledged it. And if you contrast that with the Jesus birth or Muhammad's birth, nothing has been critically evaluated. So I think over the period of time, that is one of the reasons that they're losing value day by day, because they don't allow anyone else to question what they say. But for the Hindus and for Sanatan Dharmis, the Krishna's birth, Ram's birth has been critically evaluated by global scholars. So that's what do you have to say on that, sir?
I would say the Ramayana and Mahabharata are evaluated by global scholars. I will make one small change. I would say they have criticized Ramayana and Mahabharata. Unfortunately, they have not critically evaluated, because when they criticize, their whole intention appears to be to put it down. Okay. And against that, you can also have a approach of critiquing it, not criticizing, critiquing it, which means to separating the grains from the chaff. And now there are people doing it. And of course, over last 200 years, 250 years, there were few rare individuals in academia also who did do a good critic. But for most part, it was lacking. If they would have truly critiqued it, they would have brought out so much more wisdom and so much more relevance, even historically speaking, from both Ramayana, that is for Rama, that we discussed some time ago, and from Krishna, for the humanity. I mean, this is not for Sanatana Vedic Dharma, this is not for Hinduism, this is for all humanity. They could have brought up a lot more. But it is happening now. If it did not happen before, it is happening now. It is happening more so. And it will continue, and no one can really stop it. I mean, they can try if they want to, but it will not stop.
Well, thank you for great opening remarks. Now, coming back to the topic that we have chosen to discuss about Krishna. Now, Mahabharata, Vyasadeva is very clear and says the entire Mahabharata is written to glorify Purna Purushottam Bhagwan, Shri Krishna. And the word exactly are Purna Purushottam Bhagwan. And also Srimad Bhagavatam, the entire book is written to glorify Krishna. There's one Bhagavat Puran, which is based on to glorify Krishna. Why Krishna has been treated so importantly by all these great sages?
Okay, well, one has to read Mahabharata and one has to read Bhagavad Puran to know why Krishna is treated as one of the greatest, if not the greatest. Actually, the greatest personality, Purna Purush, as you said, Purna Purushottam. One more text I should add. Of course, Krishna's Leela is being discussed in other Puranas also, like Padma Puran and Vishnu Puran and whatnot. The Markandeya Puran, then you talk about the Prabhas Khanda and Dwarka Khanda, and then whole descriptions of Prabhas and Dwarka Kshetra. But one more book that I must mention is Harivamsha. Yeah, the whole name, so for example, after Vyasadeva wrote Mahabharata, which was a huge text, right? 100,000 plus verses. Then we hear the story why he wrote Bhagavad Puran, because he was not satisfied. I mean, he felt he did not have a chance to describe about Krishna enough in the Mahabharata. And actually, if you read that, you will see that is true, because there is enough of descriptions of Krishna. But the main theme was about the Kuru dynasty, about related to the whole Kurus. And so Krishna, for example, Krishna does not appear in Mahabharata per se until these people are in the Vanavas. The first time they are just out. They are removed from Hastinapur. The first time, and that's when Krishna meets. So it doesn't come. He doesn't show up until then. And the main focus was a Mahabharat war and Kuru dynasty. So it was not there. Now, therefore, Vasudev says he wrote Bhagavad Puran. But let me quickly bring up Harivamsha, and we will talk about evidence from Harivamsha today as it relates to Krishna's birth. It's a phenomenal evidence. I have discussed it in a few times in my few lectures, but none of the lecture, this may be the first possibly, none of those lectures are out on a YouTube. So there is a phenomenal evidence from Harivamsha. And just to understand the position of Harivamsha, Harivamsha is essentially appendix to Mahabharata. It's called Khila Parva, which means appendix. So just like Bhagavad Puran, even Vasudev and his disciples, they felt that there were some points, especially about Krishna, that they did not have a chance to mention in the Mahabharata. And therefore, Harivamsha was written. I mean, Harivamsha, the whole Vamsha, related to Krishna's dynasty, before and after, but especially before. So that was written. So today we will briefly talk about the evidence from Mahabharata, evidence from Harivamsha, and also some evidence from Bhagavad Puran, just to make a contrast between some of the descriptions of Krishna in Harivamsha and some of the description of Krishna in Bhagavad Puran.
So in Harivamsha, where does Harivamsha begin in describing Krishna's appearance and putting the dates in place?
Okay. So Harivamsha has the three big sections, like Hari Parva, and then Vishnu Parva, and then I think it's called Bhavishya Parva, something like that. Okay, so those three are the ones. Now the Bhavishya Parva discusses things after Krishna, and also the other Parvas discussed. But the Hari Parva, and especially that is going before, and then the Vishnu Parva discusses the events of Krishna's life, or related to Krishna's birth and Krishna's childhood, which is missing in Mahabharata text. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So that's just a brief description of Harivamsha. There are three big sections. The first one discusses Krishna's dynasty going backwards before Krishna. So we are going to all the way to the time of Manu, and Revata, and many of the sons of Manu, they who turned into the Syu dynasty, and that comes towards Krishna. So therefore we hear all these different names. For example, Krishna is known as a Madhava, that is belonging to that Madhu dynasty. Okay, then Vrishni, you hear Yadu Vamsha, Vrishni Vamsha, and the Andhaka Vamsha, and that is because of these ancient kings, which possibly we can only estimate possibly go to at least 50,000 BC as a safe guess, somewhere in that area. It's an approximate number. That is when the Yadu dynasty or Andhaka dynasty or Revataka dynasty, those dynasties began, and they come to then we will talk about Krishna's birth itself.
So according to Harivamsha, when does Krishna appear? What are the constellations on the Chhatra in which he appears? And is that all that mentioned over there?
It is mentioned. Now what happens is we have to combine what is given in Harivamsha with what knowledge we have otherwise, which is not necessarily in Harivamsha. So we have to bring the pieces together. For example, let's begin with the Tithi and Nakshatra. So Krishna is born in month of Shravan, the lunar month of Shravan. Okay, so where the full moon would be around the Shravana Nakshatra, that is that month. Then he is born on the Vadya Paksha, the Shukla Paksha versus the Krishna Paksha. So he is born in the Vadya Paksha or Krishna Paksha, and Tithi is a Ashtami. So 8 days after the full moon day. So we start with that Tithi. We also start with the lunar month of Shravan, okay, and the Vadya Ashtami. So that information we begin with, that is not exactly given in Harivamsha. Then see what happens. The Shravan Vadya Ashtami occurs every year. That's why we celebrate Krishna's birth every year. So that information is necessary, but it's not sufficient to decide when Krishna was born. Then let's go to Mahabharata, and without going into the details, we have discussed this work before, like using every single astronomy observation 300 plus, I have arrived at 5561 BCE for the year of Mahabharata war. Okay. Then if you go to Dwarka, so that's a great evidence. You also have evidence for Dwarka flooding and destruction in 5525 BCE, that is 36 years after the Mahabharata war. Now, why is that important? Because that is the time of the end of Krishna's pastime, 5525 BC, okay, and then we will come to his age. Now let's come to Harivamsha. So now at the time of Mahabharata war, the Mahabharata text tells us that Arjuna was about 65 years old. And why is that important? Because we know that Arjuna and Krishna were of the same age. In fact, anytime, I don't know if we discussed this, but it's such a beautiful description that comes in Mahabharata. Anytime Krishna meets Pandavas, what he does is he pays obeisances to Yudhishthir, to Bhima, because they are elder than him.
Elders.
Even Bhagwan has to follow the etiquettes, of the earthly life, So he does that, and he shows as a adarsha, he shows as a
actually touches feet. He tells.
Right, and he does that for us, right? Just like Rama touched the feet of Ahalya,
Right.
And then he gives a hug, a lingan, to Arjuna because they are of the same age. And then Nakul and Sahadev do obeisances to Krishna because they are younger than. So why is this important? We know approximately, if not exactly, that Krishna and Arjun are of the same age.
Same age.
Arjun was at 65 years old at the time of Mahabharata war. So Krishna is also 65 years old. So now Mahabharata war is in 5561 BC. Okay, so now if we go back to calculate, it comes to 5626 BC, 5626 BCE. Okay, now this is where the Harivamsha evidence comes in picture. So Krishna must have been about 4 years old, and there must be some shifting, in Harivamsha, because Purana, it's like a Purana, and sometimes the Purana narrations are not exactly accurate. You'll find that in a Bhagavad Purana also, because people, when they were updating these afterwards, some changes happen. Okay, but what is very beautiful is this change you cannot change, and I'm going to tell you how fascinating this evidence is. So in the Vishnu Parva, around chapters 22, 26, somewhere in that area, and the reason I give that range is depending on some manuscripts, the chapter may move back and forth, one or two. There is a description. This is Akrur talking to Kamsa and admonishing Kamsa and saying, you are not behaving properly, you are not ruling it properly, and I am seeing some signs, some omens, you can say, some bad signs in the sky, and they are not good for you. If you don't change your behavior, it will be very detrimental to you, and Kamsa of course doesn't listen. But it is in this context that Akrura is telling to Kamsa, and this is now the evidence. There are few astronomy pieces of evidence, and I'll briefly mention the other, but the most important, because, and I'll tell you why it is so critical. There is a description of a comet. And what does it say? This is something that doesn't happen often. We see comets all the time, but it doesn't happen. He says this comet has become so scary to look in the sky. It's so scary. It has practically covered the entire sky, meaning half the sky. At any given point, approximately we see through 180 degrees. Now, is that the only description? It's not. It says it begins, like the starting point of the visible point of this comet begins from a nakshatra Bharani. Very, very specific. Nakshatra Bharani, and then it covers 13 nakshatra, meaning half of the nakshatra of 27. And to such an extent, of course, it's a poetic language, So it says it's such an extent that it has diminished the shining, diminished the light of nakshatras, those 13 nakshatras. And if you look from Bharani, those 13 nakshatra, they go all the way to Shravana, for example, the Shravana nakshatra. And why so big deal? Because comets are coming all the time. They're not coming every year. But such a comet, and by the way, this happens to be Halley's comet for 5626 BC. So the comet is seen not in 5626 BC when Krishna is born. Comets is seen in 5622 BC, like when Krishna is like 4 year old. So Krishna has already appeared. There are signs that Kamsa is going to go away. Kamsa's torture is increasing, and Akrura is telling him. Now, one important thing about this thing is a comet which is in aphelion so huge, starting with Bharani Nakshatra, covering the entire sky. And I'm saying this is a Halley's comet because that's what I have astronomically simulated to find out. Such a scenario, at least for Halley's comet, has never repeated again in last 7,500 years. So Halley's comet comes every 75, 77 years. And I have done a simulation for every single instance from this 5622 BC to our times. The last time Halley's comet was seen was 1986. So I have done for this, and this is the only time. And of course, then there are some mention of Venus and some mention of Mars. But these things can happen multiple times. But this cometary thing is a phenomenal evidence, almost like, I don't like to use the word, but it's like an irrefutable evidence. I mean, someone has to show this evidence if somebody claims anything different. It is that powerful. And of course, it perfectly matches with the Mahabharata evidence, 300 plus. It matches with the Dwarka flooding and so on. And it does create some variations, and we will talk about that when there are some more evidence in Harivamsha, which also supports this particular date. But I don't want to do the monologue. I want to give it to you in between.
So no, I think that's a very great insight. And virtually I was lost in an explanation, and I was thinking, it's.
Did I confuse you?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm not confused because I've read these scriptures. But the point is that the references that you have chosen and you named it Halley's comet. Actually, in Harivamsha, this comet has a different Sanskrit name. It's some other name. It is.
Could be. I mean, yeah, I have to go back and look again.
Yeah, it is said some kind of a maybe Danav type of, because they don't refer to comets as comets. It's considered Apshakun.
And Dhumaketu, the word used is a Dhumaketu.
Yeah, some other Sanskrit name is there.
Yeah.
Now this cometry, this positions of these comets and nakshatra and the stars, they actually tell you a very accurate position on Earth. Actually, for people who believe in these, even the Western astronomical students who are there, who believe in this, they denote a particular place, because from different points on Earth, you see the same events happening. Slightly will change. I think this thing has been commented on Maharishi Atri also. In his when he was Asita, Devala, and Atri, all three rishis have commented on this position. So the dates which you have analyzed, which is 5,600 something years back,
26, yeah.
5,000.
Yeah, and for a Dhumaketu, for the comet 5622 BC.
So what relevance it has got from the historicity of Krishna for the modern people?
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, the relevance is it gives a landmark to identify the year of Krishna's birth. So when this is happening, Krishna is already born, has to be already there. I'm not saying has to be, but we know that in this case he's there, right? That is one. The event that Akrura is describing to Krishna before, that means Akrura describing to Kamsa, and Kamsa is still there, but he's going to be killed very soon. That's what historically we know. So that particular event, the uniqueness of that event is, of course, the comets are coming again, not just Halley's comets, many other comets, but a comet that is in aphelion in such a huge fashion, meaning even people have referred to comets 1963, and it's not, if you see the simulation now, it's not that big. But when they saw it in the sky, and I know first person accounts in Mumbai, people seeing it in 1960s, and they're saying, my God, it feels like, as if it can just zap the earth, I mean, it feels so huge, just the way it is saying. And if you see the simulation, it's not that big. Now, in comparison, if you imagine what was seen in 5622 BCE, the hell is the way particular orientation from Bharani Nakshatra, it just mind-boggling what they would have seen. I mean, we have to only imagine with simulation. So that's number one. But quickly, let me bring you another evidence from Harivamsha. For example, Krishna is born and Harivamsha mentions that the month of Shravan, month of Shravan is there, and the Vadyashtami and at midnight. So he mentions that. Harivamsha mentions that. But what is interesting is, and this is where there is a slight difference between the Harivamsha narration of Krishna's birth and a Bhagavad Puran narration of Krishna's birth. So Harivamsha narration much closer to historicity, much closer historically speaking. And here is how. For example, when Vasudev, he's going from Mathura to Vrindavan, take Krishna with him. Okay, do you know what it describes? Now, in a Bhagavad Puran, we are hearing the descriptions of a heavy rain falling on him, and then he has to cross Yamuna. Okay, now possibly what happens? See, these are Krishna Katha; they are unlimited. I mean, people's devotional, their own perception of it. Bhagavad Puran, as it was updated many times, relatively speaking, Harivamsha was also updated. So you see some variations. But Bhagavad Puran, by the time it may be adjusted. I'll come to why Bhagavad Puran might have this story of a heavy rain and Vasudeva crossing Yamuna. But Harivamsha has no reference to heavy rain, number one. There is second reference, Harivamsha has no reference to Vasudeva crossing Yamuna river with Krishna. In fact, very clearly description says he walked along the side of Yamuna and reached Vrindavan. But another important reference is that in the month of Shravan, right now we have a Shravan month. And in India, if you know Mumbai is flooded, with the rain and of course the seawater, right? With the full moon. But the description of Harivamsha at the time of Krishna's birth, the description clearly says that the trees were being cut as this was the season of summer. That's what it says. Okay. Like, I don't know if it's true around all of India, but I know at least the Western India, Maharashtra part, where I grew up, the trees are cut and they are used to, add nutrition to the land by burning the trees and leaves and cow dung and whatnot. Now in Harivamsha, do you know what else it says? It says, as the Vasudeva is walking, the land below is dry, and sometimes his feet is going through the dried cow dung. The description is that specific in Harivamsha. Now, what is the importance of it? I'll quickly summarize. The importance of that is right now, while the month of Shravan is in the peak of rainy season or just after the rainy season. If you go back 7,500 years ago, it was not the timing of rainy season. Rather, it was the Grishma Rutu. It was the summertime as described in Harivamsha. So that is also additional evidence for that perfectly matches with this timing. So besides the comet, besides the Mahabharata evidence and besides Dwarka evidence, even the evidence of season and of course the astronomy evidence, that all comes together for Krishna's birth, 5626 BC.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
When Krishna was 10 years, 7 months old, that time he killed Kamsa. So 10 years, 7 months, and generally it is acknowledged by many scholars that he lived on this planet for 125 years.
Great point, yeah.
And then, 36 years after the war of Mahabharata, because Yudhishthira left when Krishna left. So first Krishna left, and the news teaches him at that time he renounces everything.
Yes.
So 36 years is what Yudhishthira Maharaj ruled. And so if you calculate everything, then the Mahabharata war, when it started, Krishna was around 90 years old.
Great question. I mean, great point. I would respond to that. No, even if you wouldn't have brought it up, I would have brought it up. Yeah. Okay. For example, on my blog, there are 3 blogs on Krishna's lifetime. like Krishna's birth and Krishna's
If you
total
can tell the viewers
Ayush.
about them, it will be really great. Tell the viewers.
Okay. Yeah. So my blog is at nileshoak.wordpress.com, and I have like 500 plus specific articles there. Specific notes. They're short notes, long notes into that. And I have written three. And here I'll tell you this. For example, what you just mentioned, like Krishna living for 125 years, it is mentioned in Bhagavad Puran. It is also mentioned in Vishnu Puran, and it might have been mentioned few other places. Okay. So when I
Mahabharata,
start, no,
Mahabharata.
Mahabharata doesn't mention directly. No.
In the Sri Parva, there is a particular shloka which
Okay.
it mentions that when Yudhishthira Maharaj goes to offer his obeisances to the departed souls, people who killed,
Hmm.
and he informs Dhritarashtra that 1.6 billion people were killed.
Okay.
He gives the count,
Yeah.
and then he goes, and then he says Krishna is still there,
Hmm.
and Krishna will live. They already knew in advance, 125 years.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I will also look for it, but if you can find that verse from Sri Parva, that will be phenomenal. But I have not found it. I mean, at least I have not come across in Mahabharata, but Bhagavad Puran has it, Vishnu Puran has it, and as I said, there could be other places. So when I wrote my first blog, and it's still there, and I'll tell you why I keep this blog. So I said, okay, Krishna lived for 125 years. So based on that, I had also said, if you go back 10 plus years, that Krishna was around 89-year-old at the time of Mahabharata war. Okay, so that's there. Now, if you have heard this other thing, you might have heard that there is this other you can call a learned opinion, or opinion you want to call it, that Krishna lived for 116 years, 116 years, and I searched for it because I was looking for researching Krishna. And what I found is that the possibly that reference comes from a Chandogya Upanishad. So Chandogya Upanishad, there is maybe I'm telling the wrong name of the Upanishad, but I think it's Chandogya Upanishad. There is a reference to Devaki Vasudev. Okay, Devaki Vasudev, and so of course we know Krishna's mother's name is Devaki, and Krishna was also called Vasudev. So some people have interpreted that Devaki Vasudev to mean Krishna, which could very well be. And then I don't want to go on such a digression, but because it's related to Vedas, like Upanishad and talking of the Vedas, so they're talking all the different key meters, like for example what you call Gayatri meter, and other meters that are used in the Rigveda. And you take the matras, the accents, how many accents are used, and if you add up, for those 4 key meters, like there is a Jagati Chanda, there is a Gayatri Chanda, just like Anushtup Chanda we talk. And when they add up, that adds up to 116. And therefore, 116 is the life or something, it says in the Chandogya Upanishad. Based on that, somebody interpreted Krishna might have lived for 116 years. So that's a second opinion. Now, what I am saying right now is I started with 125. Then at one point, even I explored 116. And now meaning for last for 4 or 5 years, with the additional evidence, now I have come down to 101. So 5626 BCE, that is when he's born, and I'll come back to that. Then he's 65 years old because he has to be same age as Arjuna. So that is why I adjusted that. So so therefore he's a 65 years at that time. And then we also know Mahabharata text tells us that 36 years after the Mahabharata war, Dwarka was flooded and destroyed. And that is the same time, more or less the same time when Krishna passed away. Okay, so we know that. And then you are correct. Then after that, Yudhishthira. So I came from 125 to 116 to 101 in this fashion. Because because Arjuna has to be similar age as Krishna based on the description. And Arjun is saying, I'm a 65-year-old. Even that statement needs some interpretation. Because what he's saying, just before the war, almost like you can say at the time of the war, meaning in the same year, when he's at the Virat, he's saying this Gandiva bow that he's holding, he's carrying this Gandiva bow for 65 years. Okay, now that statement we cannot take it literally, because Arjuna is not carrying Gandiva from day one, from the day he's born. Actually, many years passed by. I mean, we have a way to estimate that possibly he was like a 30-year-old when he received Gandiva. Okay. So now how do we, so if you add that, then as you say, it will go to 90 also. That could be one of the reasons why some people thought Arjuna and Krishna would be 90 years old. Okay. But we cannot do that either. I'll tell you why. Because the same Mahabharata text talks about Drona, Guru Dronacharya, being 85 years old at the time of the war. And when Drona was a guru to Arjuna, Arjuna and everyone were young boys. So they cannot be older than Drona. So when we, and then of course Bhishmacharya around 140 years or whatever, that approximate timing we can estimate. So when we, so this is my research, but it is open for critiquing, you know, so somebody can critique it and say that doesn't make sense and that doesn't make sense. And here is the alternate evidence and here is a better theory. So I'm always open for that. That is true for the year of Mahabharata war, that is true for the flooding and destruction of Dwarka, and now that will be also true for the birth year of Krishna. But if you look at the most of the evidence and you want to put together and find the best fit for all existing data, Krishna, we would have to say that more likely scenario is that Krishna lived for 101 years. So then that's 5626 BCE to 5525 BCE. By the way, what you just quickly mentioned, the Kamsa he killed at 10 years and 8 months or something.
7 months.
12 months. Okay.
7
so there also, how many?
7 months.
7 months. Sorry. Thank you. So 10 years and 7 months. There also, I have seen some variation. So some more research is required. For example, Harivamsha, and it doesn't give an exact year, but it Shodasha Varsha, it says, meaning when they left Vrindavan. Of course, Krishna would have killed Kamsa before that, but if you read the descriptions and they are not very clear, it doesn't appear like Krishna lived in Vrindavan for long after he killed Kamsa. So he's a Shodasha Varsha, so it's like he was a 16-year-old. So there is some discrepancy.
Krishna killed Kamsa in Mathura.
Yeah.
So when he was 10 years, 4 months old, then Akrura came to Vrindavan to take them from Gokul to Mathura. And 3 months after they reached, so there is a whole incident where they stayed outside the Mathura city, and then Krishna went inside and he killed Chanur and Murdina. Chanur,
Right.
and then in a fist fight, and then immediately after that he ran up, then he broke the big bow.
Yes.
And then after breaking the bow, Kamsa comes and finds them out. And then 10 years, 7 months is very clearly mentioned as killed. Now coming back to Mahabharata, when Arjun, so most of the Pandavas, Hastinapur people did not know them because they were born in the forest.
Yes.
And so I think it is imagined that till 12 years old, Arjuna was 12 to 14 years old, they were still in the forest. And the Vyasdev and other rishis got them here. And based on the testimony of Kunti Maharani and the sages, the Dhritarashtra accepted them as sons of Pandu. Now, it is said that at the age of 14 is where they first met Dronacharya, who was almost like a beggar, and Bhishma found him out, and then he invited him to train these children.
Right.
And so by the time Arjun met Dronacharya, we can roughly imagine he was 14 years old.
Fair.
And then they were given arms training. Particularly Dronacharya was chosen because he had access to weapons which ordinary humans could not. And then the Bhishma knew about him, and then he gave him employment. And that was his rin to Duryodhana.
Correct.
Because he did not have money to feed milk to his own children.
Yes, Ashwatthama story, right? Yeah. Yes.
So coming back, so here we have Arjun meeting Dronacharya at 14 years old.
Yes.
And then we have this whole, so 14 years, and you are absolutely right over there that Krishna first met them physically in the Swayamvar.
Yes, correct. Just before Swayamvar, absolutely.
Yeah, in the Swayamvar, because Balram asked Krishna,
Yes.
how do you recognize the Pandavas?
Right.
कृष्णा says जो लंबे हैं मूछों वाले हैं, he is
Right.
युधिष्ठिर,
Yes.
उनके बाजू में जो बहुत ही बड़ा शरीर है वो भीम है,
Correct.
जो बहुत ही अच्छे दिखने वाले हैं वो नकुल है,
Right.
और सहदेव जो उनके सब का सुन रहा है बात आनंद, वो सहदेव है, और अर्जुन जो है पतले से हैं, लंबे से हैं, और उसी
Right.
सभा में ही डिस्क्राइब नारद मुनि.
Yes.
Narad Muni is also sitting there. Narad Muni is described as in white clothes, having a shikha, very thin, very fair, and very tall, and
Yeah.
great personality. Wo Narad Muni. So that introduction is there, and after they win Draupadi, then Krishna goes to their house to meet Kunti Maharani,
Correct.
and that's the
Correct.
story there.
Right.
So, Nilesh, very, very thank you to you for highlighting all these dates and wonderfully. And I think this is the beginning of a global Janmashtami celebration.
Mhm.
This is the first time we are doing a Janmashtami in a Corona environment. People can't assemble very closely. So Satology is very happy to participate remotely this time. So Nilesh, last points, if we missed out anything, would you like to convey?
Okay, just quickly, so related to Krishna birth, I will mention that now that the Shilanyas of Rama Mandir has been done and it has started the whole process of a Mandir building, there is a committee, and of course the efforts were always there to free up the Krishna Janmabhoomi in Mathura. But now with a new impetus, there is a group of some, I forgot the exact number, 19 or 33 sages and few other individuals. They have formed a Krishna Janmabhoomi committee, and they are starting a petition, which is a very timely and which is a must. No matter what we have to do in a legal way, in a non-violent way, but it should be done, and that process has begun, and I'm very happy, to that it has begun. So it's a long journey, but it's good that it has begun. So that's the only point I wanted to mention in the light of the Rama Janmabhoomi. Now the Krishna
No.
Janmabhoomi has begun.
Yeah, Satology, we will all support that the Christian temple should be made, and the mosque which was encroaching the land of Krishna Janmabhoomi must be removed. I think it's very open, very clear.
Yeah.
And we have no doubt and no shame, nothing. We are proud to be Krishna Bhakta, and we want our Krishna temple to be built again.
Yeah, in a just way, absolutely just way. There's no question of a shame. If somebody should feel the shame, it's somebody else, and
Correct.
it's very clear who should feel the shame. So.
Yes. So thank you so much, and for viewers for watching who are live, and please do like the video on YouTube. Namaskar.